So this is called Man in the Mirror. Check yourself. And I'm reading from the book of Exodus, chapter 8, verses 8 through 15. And it starts off with, Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, Plead with the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and my people, and I will let the people go, so that they may sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses said to Pharaoh, I am entirely at your service. When shall I plead with the Lord for you and your servants and your people, so that the frogs may leave you and your houses and remain only in the Nile? Then Pharaoh said, Tomorrow. He said, Tomorrow. Moses replied, May it be as you say, so that you may know without any doubt and acknowledge that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will leave you and your houses and leave your servants and your people, and they will remain only in the Nile. So Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh, and Moses cried out to the Lord as he had agreed to do concerning the frogs which God had inflicted on Pharaoh. The Lord did as Moses asked, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards and villages, and out of the fields. So they piled them up in heaps, and the land was detestable and stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and would not listen or pay attention to them, just as the Lord had said. So, here's my response. With Pharaoh hardening his heart, I liken this to when a person who says to the Lord in desperation that if God will get them out of their dire situation, that they will be a changed person from that day forward. And then when God gets them out of that dire situation, they forget that they had made a promise to God. And Pharaoh promised as well, but he was more intentional, and his heart was of deceit from the very beginning. To God, the result is the same, is that you promise to have a changed heart only to get what you want in the outcome. God is forgiving, but to what degree is the depth of sin you'll have to climb out of it to be fully repentant? Will you be like Pharaoh with deceit from the start, or are you like the person who forgot, which may show that you didn't have the relationship you thought you had with God after all? Either way, you're playing with God. The bottom line is to make a change and receive God's grace, or continue with a hardened heart and suffer the consequences of non-belief, and or to suffer the consequences of not acknowledging God for who he is, because the result is hell, pun intended, and on the real. You can take that figuratively or literally. The choice is yours.
Here, Pharaoh attempts to destroy the source of God's blessing, the Israelites. He brutally enslaves them in forced labor, and then he orders that all the Israelite boys be drowned in the Nile River. Now, Pharaoh, he is the worst character in the Bible so far. His kingdom epitomizes humanity's rebellion against God. Pharaoh has so redefined good and evil according to his own interests that even the murder of innocent children has become good to him. And so Egypt has become worse than Babylon from the book of Genesis. And so now Israel cries out for help against this new Babylon, and God responds. God first turns Pharaoh's evil upside down as an Israelite mother throws her boy into the Nile River, but in a basket. And so he floats safely right down into Pharaoh's own family. He's named Moses, and he grows up to eventually become the man that God will use to defeat Pharaoh's evil. In the famous story of the burning bush, God appears to Moses and commissions him to go to Pharaoh and order him to release the Israelites. And God says that he knows Pharaoh will resist, and so he will bring his judgment on Egypt in the form of plagues. Then God also says that he will harden Pharaoh's heart. And so we're introduced into the next main part of the story, the confrontation between God and Pharaoh. Now, what does this mean that God says he'll harden Pharaoh's heart. It's super important to read this section of the story really closely and in sequence. In Moses and Pharaoh's first encounter, we're told simply that Pharaoh's heart grew hard. There's no implication that God did anything. And so in response, God sends the first set of 5 plagues, each one confronting Pharaoh and one of his Egyptian gods. And each time, Moses offers a chance for Pharaoh to humble himself and to let the Israelites go. But after each plague, we're told that Pharaoh either hardened his heart or that his heart grew hard. He's doing this of his own will. And so eventually, it's with the second set of 5 plagues that we begin to hear how God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So the point of the story seems to be this. Even though God knew that Pharaoh would resist his will, God still offered him all of these chances to do the right thing. But eventually, Pharaoh's evil reaches a point of no return. I mean, even his own advisors think that he has lost his mind. And it's at that point that God takes over and bends Pharaoh's evil towards his own redemptive purposes. God lures Pharaoh into his own destruction as he saves his people.
So continue to renew your mind. Enough said.